Disclaimer. Let it be clear that harassment is not okay in any circumstances. It's okay to criticize someone's work, but never to attack the involved person or group responsible for it. Let's exercise our wealth as a community for all of those who love these games, stories, and characters in their own way, both fans and creators.
Okay. We found Mariel B in coma after reading the Clementine comic. But I think my new device will be able to bring him back and make him do a video about it.
How does this device work then?
The collar is connected to his nervous system. We turn it on and we'll be able to command him as we please.
That sounds good. We bring him back and make him do a review on the comic.
Just turn the button on when I tell you to, okay?
Fine.
Okay, let's do it!
What now, Nakomi?
I don't know. He should be waking up by now.
He's not.
Always the observant saying. What are you doing?
I don't know, it just felt right.
It's not. Just stop it. Disturbing the progress like this could lead to catastrophic results in Mariel's mind.
Say something when you get a better idea. Now wake up, you useless Brazilian idiot! Mariel B, you are going to make a review video of the new Clementine comic and share to the world your final word on it.
Tilly Walden! Skybound!
Oh no! What have we done?
May the bow god have mercy on us all.
Tilly Walden! Tilly Walden! Skybound! Skybound!
Oh, okay. Hello everyone, Mariel B here with another video, and today we're here for a highly awaited video, at least by my part, and I think for some of you too. If you're caught up to what has been going on in the fandom for about a year now, you know that Skybound tasked Tilly Walden, a moderately renowned cartoonist, to write a canon sequel to the final season in the format of a graphic novel trilogy. From the get-go, Skybound made poor marketing decisions with this comic, wanting to supposedly target a younger audience from ages 12 plus or even younger than that, when honestly, no children of this age range ever played any of the games, and basically excluded the long-term fans, in hindsight, the biggest consumers in potential for this comic. It all came a bit more clear how bad things were getting when the comic Clementine Lives debuted in Skybound Access Issue 1, a 10-year anniversary edition of the company. I made a video giving my thoughts on it in my channel last year, but I'll take those opinions back in this video to fully clarify what are my major issues with the storyline's initial premises, characterization, and overall plot, since now we have the entire book 1 to analyze. This video for sure is gonna be huge, probably the biggest one on my channel, and it will be divided into 6 parts. In the past, I've received requests for a Clementine Lives rewrite series, or even a title like The Clementine Comic could have been good. But after Skybound Access disaster, after the lackluster marketing, after the cringeworthy declarations by Tilly Walden and Robert Kirkman, and after the way they insisted in calling this canon and ignored fans' response till this day, I can for sure tell you that Clementine Book 1, Clementine Lives, and Tilly Walden's graphic novel trilogy project should never have existed. Starting this off, I'd like to point something out. To save the final season's production, the rights had to be transferred from Telltale to Skybound. As we all know, they finished the game on a good note, which was great. I honestly don't know how I'd be if this series was never finished at the time it did. However, when companies acquire titles, IPs, and whatever, they need to obligatorily produce things with it. It's not commercially smart to acquire a title and not do anything with it. That's why Skybound created the definitive series, for instance. They did it mostly also so they could profit from it too. Because if you only buy the game separately on Steam or any other platform, you're giving the money directly to Telltale instead of Skybound. As we all know, the definitive series was a major disappointment. A bug fest everywhere that would break the experience of playing the games, and also the collectibles, which took a long time to reach the buyers and were of less than stellar quality. They then promised a new statue to atone a bit, but people never got the new statue till this day. Even more ironic, because they have marketed this statue many times now in ads, events, etc. A lot of people in a fandom after the final season was over asked for a season 5. Which I was never a part of because I knew that Clem's journey ended in a really wholesome way and there was no reason to continue her story. However, as you well know, fans gonna fan, and people still ask for it till this day. Seeing this, Skybound saw the opportunity to profit a bit more from Telltale's legacy, and they knew that if they wanted to profit from it somehow, they had to portray Clementine as the main character. Otherwise, it wouldn't sell. Yay! Fans are gonna be super hyped for the release of the comic. Am I right or am I right, guys? Huh? Well, the reception was practically unanimous. For you watching this video now, you probably agree that this 12-page comic sucked so hard that it made A New Frontier and The Walking Dead Michonne look like masterpieces in comparison. And that's coming from a guy who made 5 videos severely criticizing these games. Summing it up, they took Clem's motivation and character resolution in the final season and threw it on the garbage, only in favor of a new plot, new character arc, and overall new characters. Only so you can understand piece by piece, since neither Skybound nor Tilly seems to understand this. Clem found a home where AJ and herself could grow up around friends, loved ones, and several loyal people they cared about and would help them survive peacefully. Something that Clem and every other character in the series struggled a lot trying to find. Clem breaks the cycle of sacrifice we've seen in the series, especially working as a clear parallel to Lee's death in season 1, ultimately surviving in the end. She looks at the skull, happy, and there was the end of her journey. She was worthy of this peace, and now she can finally have it. An absolutely beautiful conclusion. But then, one day she simply waked up and decided she wasn't happy anymore. She leaves the school. She leaves AJ, saying directly to him, the boy she took care since birth and faced hell to protect, that he couldn't make her happy. If you watched my video last year, you may remember that I was still open to see what was going to happen in book 1 and believed that there was still going to be deeper explanations on why she would do such a thing. However, after some time meditating on it, I simply came to realize that this isn't okay on any circumstances for her character, and nothing they could ever pull off in the rest of this trilogy would justify the things Tilly did in the 12 pages of this prologue. As they said themselves, choices had to be made to continue doing stories with her. Yeah, but you people apparently chose the worst possible approach ever to this. However, what I haven't realized it back then, and when I did, it just made it all somehow even worse. It's about the time period the comic takes place. Let me explain. As it is in news, Skybound would oftenly reveal pages of the comic before book 1's release, one more nonsensical than the other, I might add. And when reading the part where Clem is getting her new prosthetic leg from Rabbi, yes, the dentist who learned how to make a prosthetic leg, one of the most cringe-inducing marketing for this comic, thanks for nothing Skybound. Anyway, after he gives her the prosthetic leg, he says this, infection, it's always a risk for you. The thing is, when I first read the CL comic, I thought that at least a year has passed from the events of the final season. You know, AJ seems to be taller than usual in the game, and Clem even remarks that by saying how much he grew up, and also this could maybe add more to the fact that Clem was unhappy. Perhaps the many traumatic events in her life, which clearly there were plenty she went through, could fall out in her mind, now quiet in a calm place like the school, and start corroding her with a few possible psychological traumas. Kinda like a war veteran coming back home to his family with PTSD or anything of sorts. But then again, let's go back to this statement. Infection, it's always a risk for you. If you don't know, infection in wounds in general is only dangerous when the wound isn't fully healed. In terms of amputations such as Clem's chopped off leg, it varies a lot from case to case, but the healing process in amputations will likely take less than a month. Of course, with the appropriate medical assist. If it takes more than that to heal, the person probably won't survive. If you already got my point, you can guess I was mildly confused when I read this page, because I thought due to AJ's height, Clem's statement on it, and her overall attitude of leaving him in the school, that at least a year has passed, as I said. However, how would she survive a year or more and still have to worry about infection? I realized it then, so I searched about infection wounds online, and I also looked up on the Walking Dead wiki, only to have the confirmation and discovered that actually the events of the comics allegedly take place a few weeks after the final season. I will say it again. The conversation we saw between Clementine and AJ happened a few weeks after the final season. If you haven't catched it yet, let me rephrase it. This means that after the final season, after Clem went through hell against the Delta, after she lost her leg and almost lost her life to protect AJ, and everyone in the school finally sitting happily and admire what she had conquered in the course of a few weeks leaving in the school, she came to realize in her dumb fuckery mind that she wasn't happy and decided to abandon the school alone and without warning anyone. Not even AJ. He caught her by surprise in the shack and still running the risk of infection with the fucking pirate peg leg. And thus it came clear to me that when AJ asked if this was going to be like the last time and if she was going to come back, he wasn't referring to a possible trip that Clem took in the meantime of the final season in a comic. No, he was talking about the freaking ranch. Fort McCarroll, goddammit! The same place, let I remind you, that Clem said that she would never leave AJ again.
And I'll never leave you again.
And the cherry on top of this cake, the coalition. So probably they settled a deal with the people from that one caravan that was mentioned in a few of the determinant endings of the final season, and were invited to make part of this coalition. Basically an alliance between communities. But Mariel, what's the matter with that? Well, on itself, nothing. But you see, one of the reasons Clem felt more comfortable leaving AJ was because he'd be safe in the school due to the coalition. But then again, is she really gonna trust something this big to a deal she and the kids at the school formed with these people only a few weeks ago? Come on, this is The Walking Dead. This is the universe where cannibals invite you for dinner only to have you for dessert, where bandits raid camps, rape, and slaughter people, and overall unstable and untrustworthy people try to live in problematic communities. And you're just gonna leave everyone at the school on that note? Because you're not happy? Pathetic. Just come the fuck on. Sure, not affirming that making part of this coalition is a bad move on itself, since we don't know anything about it, but Clem's decision to leave everything is even more stupid, for example, than Dr. Lingard leaving AJ at the ranch. He said it was a peaceful place. Yeah, well, guess what? The community was overrun and it quickly became a war zone. Also, are you gonna leave the school to fend for itself in shady alliances that haven't taken that long to solidify themselves? What is this, Marlin Safe Zone 2.0? Also, Wasn't there a big war going on? Delta fighting from Richmond to the coast, like Abel mentioned in Broken Toys? Is there a chance that Delta could come back? What guarantees do you have that this coalition isn't part of this supposed war in some shape or form? Guess that attending these issues weren't as interesting and compelling as to what Tilly got in store for us. Right, guys? Huh? Hike mountaineering, evil twins, new love, let's go to Vermont. Wow! And this is just part 1 of this video. Does it get any worse than this? I thought by reviewing a graphic novel made by Tilly Walden, I had to get a bit more acquainted with the format and the author. Thus, I bought 2 titles of hers, Are You Listening? And I Love This Part. There weren't exactly the words that made Skybound hire her for the job, but I searched a bit of her titles and narrowed it down to these 2 for the similarities they seem to share with what Skybound marketed for Clementine Book 1. Those being a self-discovery journey with a group of characters literally traveling from one place to another, and a young LGBT love-centered story. Reading these 2 works took more time and overall pages than Book 1 itself. While Book 1 has about 270 pages, both of these Tilly's books summed up close to 400 pages. Are you listening? So this was my first contact with anything of Tilly Walden outside of Clementine. Out of the 2 I chose, I was naturally expecting this to have a more fleshed out story than the other due to its size, and to say, I was positively surprised with its quality, and not by little. In close to 300 pages, Are You Listening managed to introduce characters in a non-conventional way, and develop their bond in a mysterious yet natural progression. The duo is composed by Bea, an 18-year-old girl running away from home, and Lou, a 27-year-old woman who still grieves with the loss of her mother, and both of them, of course, struggle with their sexuality. This is practically a staple for Tilly's work. They're practically always LGBT focused as far as I know. The story has a particular nice twist when dealing with characters' emotions that reality itself starts breaking down as things start to make less sense, apparently. And the pages start acquiring this surreal shape to it, symbolizing how both of these characters' insecurities clashed with one another, creating a crescendo and making them go to a dark place, only so they could together get back up stronger. Also, let's add that Tilly's type of work remind me a lot of Hergé with Tintin and other works, and the most clear aspect about its art, colors do a lot for her style in the story, something that is unfortunately absent from Clementine Book 1. I keep imagining if this story, instead of being colorful, it was plain black and white pages. I can tell you, it would not be the same thing. This is definitely not the type of story I would compulsively read on my own, but it was a nice experience and it has undeniable quality. If you're somewhat into comic books or just had an interest in reading it solely out of curiosity, I totally recommend it. One last thing about this, holy hell, thank God Bea and Lou didn't stick together. That would have been super weird and awkward. Anyway, moving on. I love this part. I kinda regret reading this small piece after reading Are You Listening? Because they're both pretty contrasted in terms of length and complexity. Also, there's hardly a plot, there are only the emotions of 2 lesbian characters being portrayed in a youth tale about a breakup. They were together, they had fun and joy with one another, but due to things in life, they had to move on. It's weirdly wholesome, yet heartbreaking, because if you're old enough and aren't in your teenage years anymore, you can look back at this time of your own life and feel nostalgic to how things were simpler back then, yet kinda triggered to see how much you can hurt a person due to your being simply too immature. How things can be very superfluous at this time of our lives, and this energy is pretty well captured by this work, even if it is just a 75-page graphic novel. Conclusion. So by hearing what I said here, you may think, well, Tilly actually is a great author, right? For a little that I got acquainted, yes, She is a good author, both for writing and art, even if it is in a simpler style. She has demonstrated herself capable of creating a story with a nice setting, organic characters, pretty colors in addition to her simple art style, and make the reader feel thoughtful, if not impacted, with what was presented in its entirety. What needs to be asked, however, is if she's capable of carrying the legacy of the beloved Telltale series, creating a fitting The Walking Dead based story while making something innovative out of it, giving her own touch, style, preferences, etc. Another question is, would I want to see these themes like uncomprehended LGBT characters being applied to Clem? Well, only if it doesn't get in the way of more important things, like continuity with the games. The many aspects I mentioned earlier in part 1 explain that quite clearly. Tillie Walden has shown, at least to me, by these 2 books, that she can make a good, original story, and the question remained if she could pull this whole thing off. As you may agree, with the CL comic, the other revealed pages, the interviews and marketing on it, what seemed was that neither her nor Skybound knew what the hell they were doing to this character.
Cut to me playing all the video games.
So you hadn't played them before?
I hadn't played them before. No, but I played them all really fast.
And once book 1 came out, the answer was right under our noses. So here at last, book 1 itself. Not gonna lie, I actually wanted this thing to come out as fast as it could, not because I was hyped for it, but because the quicker the death, the lesser the pain. So now that I've read it plenty of times now, is it good? Is it bad? Is it worse or better than I expected? Summing it up, this here is a god-awful disgrace without any redeeming qualities. And not just awful in the sense that it's badly written or has bad characters, but terrible also in the sense of extreme, internal, and utter disappointment. Even if the premises weren't on point from the start, but when you finish reading this, you genuinely just ask yourself, was that it? And honestly, feeling like this in the first installment of a trilogy, not a good sensation. You've shown us a prologue to this a year before its release, made us wait this whole time holding out Clem's future by a string, and then delivered us this half-baked, no, not even that, an actual frozen concept for a story that makes no sense in the grand scheme of the series. Characters go on journeys because yes. Characters get together on the shed because yes. Characters befriend each other because yes. And this whole story exists because yes, sure, why not? The novel is divided into chapters having a total of 10, varying the numbers of pages a bit from chapter to chapter. Sometimes these chapters divisions don't make that much sense since a few of them happen as soon as the previous one ended, and others just happened a long time after. Actually, another thing I also disliked about this comic, it is never precise to how much time passed from scene to scene, nor the total of the story. I honestly just know how much time has passed in a few sections because people straight up say it out loud, like Amos and Clementine spend 9 to 10 days together before they reach the twins' camp. So yeah, chapter 1 of this was actually made public a few times prior to the release of the comic. Basically, Clem is walking alone in the woods and is brought to the Amish village by those 3 girls. One thing that may confuse you a lot right from the start is that Clem said to AJ on CL that she had stashed a car to get north. We never see any clear mention to that again. When I say clear, this is basically what we got.
Wish I still had that car.
When I first read it though, I thought for a moment she was referring to the car in the final season that she crashed. But no, apparently what happened is that Clem left the school in West Virginia, grabbed the car, and drove to Pennsylvania, where she for some reason ditched the car. You see, this thing hasn't even started, and is already confusing me as hell. Maybe you could have shown at least a panel or 2 with her driving, making it to Pennsylvania, and having to leave the car to fill us with more context. Honestly, that wouldn't have been that hard. Anyway, she makes it to the woods with a peg leg and crutches, let me remind you, and is immediately attacked by a pack of walkers. I mean, what did you expect was going to happen traveling in these conditions, you idiot? After this, she meets the Amish girls that take her to the village. There's a moment of suspense of their intentions, but they end up trusting her. Also, there's the period quote that Clem said, and people say they were really uncomfortable, and this reminded them of A New Frontier when Clem says something similar to Javier. Here comes a little unpopular opinion. I'm pretty okay with Clem dealing with periods and saying it out loud, both on A New Frontier and here as well. In Book 1's case, there are only women in the scene, and I think it is more normal for women to talk about this sort of stuff when they're among each other without any men around. Back on topic. She goes to the village and is presented to Rabbi, the dentist who learned how to make a prosthetic leg because he lived with a prostheticist. Random ass backstory that doesn't matter because this is the only scene this character shows up, but whatever. This is the moment where he says about infection that I mentioned earlier, and it is so irresponsible of Clem to put herself on the road in such conditions like this. And also she has the opportunity here to be an edgy teen, which is certainly unwelcomed if you ask me. It was already unwelcome on A New Frontier, and it is definitely worse here. Rabbi tells her to lay down and not to be on her feet too much, but Clem doesn't listen and wants to get back on the road as soon as possible. She's offered to stay for the night, but then she denies it. Goes outside of the village in the cold of the night, climbs a tree, and cries. Wait, what the hell? Yeah, buddy, you ask me, this doesn't make any sense. Of course, I get it, okay? Ooh, I'm sad, ooh, but it's still really silly to look at. Then on chapter 2, she's waked up on the next morning by a wagon that is rolling on a nearby road. She sees 3 walkers closing in the wagon, and she calls out the person guiding it.
Hey, Hat Boy.
The person takes care of the 3 walkers with one swing of an axe, and here is where we get to decently see him for the first time.
Hello there.
They talk a bit and decide to travel together because they were both heading north. Clem is reluctant at first but accepts it, and Amos, wow, he's just annoying as it gets. And pretty dumb overall. But that's actually established like this because the Amish people were apparently secluded from the real world even before the apocalypse happened, or as he calls it himself, the cataclysm. Traveling together, Amos tells Clem about Rumspringa, an Amish rite of passage, and about this job offer that was supposedly taking place at Vermont. Basically, a man came recruiting people from other communities to build a walker-free settlement at the top of a mountain, and their hard work would be rewarded with a plane flight. The idea sounded so freaking stupid, and Clementine immediately tells Amos to give up on that and go home, cause that sounded like a hoax. And yes, it was. As soon as Amos was about to tell Clem where he saw that airplane to back his story up, they have to deal with some walkers. Weirdly enough, this frame looked pretty cool, not gonna lie, and then continue to travel a bit more until where they find a helpless family, to which Amos wants to immediately aid, and Clem is not a fan of the idea, claiming they could be lying about it. In a split second, Amos gives shelter to the family in his wagon, and Clem is forced to go along. At this point, Amos is guiding the wagon while Clem and the family of 3 are asleep. The man wakes up, and I'm not sure what he did in here. What he did in this panel, since it is so hard to see anything in this black and white art style. This is actually an issue for the entire novel. What I think is that he touched on Clem's shoulder, simple as that, just a touch, only for her to subtly grab her knife and threaten to kill the man. Yeah, pretty okay for her to be suspicious about people they just met. The man, on the other hand, keeps his cool, which makes Clem back off to see there was no reason to— oh, what the hell? Just— what? I get her being a little on edge and pulling off the knife, but once she saw there was nothing too ominous about it, she should have at least asked what he was doing. But no, simple as that, she stabs on his hand with the prosthetic and leaves the wagon to be alone once again.
Should have stayed on my own.
No, you idiot, you should have stayed on the school. Amos then reaches her by riding only his horse, saying that he gave the wagon— oh, sorry, buggy— to the family, leaving a lot of his own things behind. Okay, let's just continue reading this. Jesus Christ.
You're the most ridiculous person I've ever met.
Look who's talking! In the shitty situation that they're still into, they stick together because Amos says that Clem can keep his horse Ellen when he gets to the base of the mountain to travel on her own. A fine deal, but we all know this is solely a plot device for her to reach the place with him. Before they go, however, Amos finally says where he saw a plane before, and he tells the man recruiting them for the job flew with the plane above the Amish village, and Amos was pretty amazed with it, saying he wanted to fly in one, even if that was against his Amish customs. But Mariel, I've never seen someone fly a plane before in The Walking Dead, especially this deep in the timeline of the apocalypse, even more than such a careless and gratuitous reason like this. Well, me neither. But Tilly apparently did? I don't know. They travel for a few more days, kill some walkers, make it to the mountain, easily get some good snow coats for them.
They had a lot. Usually these places are totally picked over.
I know, right? What a coincidence this must have been.
What's with the ugly jacket?
Just as they're preparing to part ways, Amos asks if she'll stay in the area, to which she replies,
I want to keep pushing north. Maybe see Canada.
Do you know any Canadians?
No.
What a coincidence again. Wow, you're about to get to know one. They make it to the base of the mountain. They both say their goodbyes, and just as Clem is about to leave with the horse for herself, it seems something is fishy about all that. And then she gets closer to them, and here we get our first glance at Sophie and Minerva. I mean, Olivia and Georgia. I mean, no names. Yeah, sure, nothing odd about that. Let's just keep going, I guess. Clem starts making a few questions and the evil twin starts getting on the offensive with edgy, stupid dialogue, but it's still willing to go through with them. So she goes to start the lift. Yeah, there's a lift they can use to get there. Now pay attention to this. Clem whispers to Amos that both of them are dangerous and can't be trusted, but then as always, Amos misses the point and says, well, they're misjudging you. Seriously? Okay. The worst part, however, comes now. As they're arguing, the other twin asks her if Alan, the horse, is for them, and without a clear answer, she fucking shoots the horse down for food. Amos is horrified to see his dear horse down like that, and Clem tries to calm him down while the twins are confused. Now, if it were you on Clem's skin, as you gathered that there was an unlikely job offer at the top of a mountain in exchange for a plane ride that only 3 people besides Amos would work on it, the 2 twins refused to give their names to you and kill your horse without a clear answer as to what you were going to do with it, what would you do? 1. Leave all of them. 2. Grab Amos and leave the twins. Or 3. Stay with the twins to see how it goes. I'll give you some time to think about it. Yep, you guessed it. Of course we're gonna stay with the twins. I mean, why not? They just didn't know the horse was important to Amos. Do you really blame them for it? Shit, okay. So they decide to stay. Clem threatens one of the twins for them not to eat the horse, and Clem and Amos make it up to the lift. They have a little funny thing that Amos doesn't know how to use a lift because, I mean, who cares, whatever. They make it to the top of the mountain, and then they meet at last the character we all thought was going to be the worst thing about this comic for reasons that I'll approach later on the video. Rika. At first she was also kind of weird, but seemed to share a natural suspiciousness toward the twins. And I think Clem gets closer to her because she's the one she can count on. I mean, out of the 2 potential psychos and the moron, sure, she's the most trustworthy there. However, after asking the twins a few questions and being ridiculously ignored, they both talk to each other about what they thought was going on out there. And since Rika was also suspicious of the twins, Clem asks her why was she there to begin with, to which Rika brilliantly counter-arguments.
Why are you?
Even if that is actually a great question, honestly, I just can't pick who's the most annoying and childish out of all this crap. They all go to bed to start hard working on the next day, but then an avalanche hits their shed later that night. I mean, you are on a screwed up shed on the top of a mountain during winter. What the hell did you expect would happen? The impact from the avalanche causes Clem to have her first quote-unquote flashback, and it is the scene where Lee and Clem meet each other by the house in season 1. Some people weren't that pleased with the order the dialogue didn't happen the same way as the game, but since this is a dreamy flashback, I think there's nothing wrong with it. Then she wakes up at the destroyed shed with Rika by her arms because, you know, they have to be close to one another so they can fall in love. Ooh. They need to have to be close to one another so they can fall in love. Ooh. At the next day, Amos and Clem are fixing the hole on the roof from the avalanche, and they're talking about the twins, which they convened in calling one left and the other one right. Not at all confusing, but whatever. And then Clem says this.
This is technically my first job, huh?
You see, Clem, since you seem to be suffering a lot from amnesia lately, let me remind you of something. This is not exactly your first job, but if you want to forget your time as a slave for Carver, I honestly can get behind that.
I guess you're starting your day with me. We're loading magazines. Well, that's it. You got it.
Pick up a pair of those shears. Okay, so we're picking these berries, right? Just pick them, put them in the basket. Simple.
Real simple. Just take this over to him. Hey, Troy! Clem's just gonna take them boys some nails.
All right. Get that stuff over to them boys.
After they're done with the roof, Rika then invites Clem to a ride with her on a snowmobile. Wait, what the hell? They have a snowmobile? First a promise for a plane ride and now a snowmobile they can freely use in their spare time? Gee, I wonder if we're ever getting an explanation as to how the twins are so well supplied like this. Getting to a nice moment, they talk about religion and Rika reveals she's actually a Sephardic Jewish Canadian girl and that her family is all dead. No surprise, this is The Walking Dead after all. But Amos, since he's as stupid as it gets, asks like, oh, but where is your family? And like, dude, apocalypse, hello? Later in the video, I will explain why Amos being unaware of the outer world like this makes no sense. And then comes teenage bonding time.
You sound like an old man.
I'm only 16.
Yeah, this imagery was on the trailer and it is still pretty cringe-inducing to see on page, especially after this.
What? Don't stop, I was just trying to enjoy myself.
Girl, you literally met her yesterday, and you're in a pretty dangerous situation with the twins already. Now is not the time for this. Moving on to the end of the day, they talk to Left and ask about the plane. She says it is in your mother's place and that she herself can fly the plane because her uncle taught her. Okay, not weird at all. Naturally, they start asking more questions to the twins about the supplies and their reasons, and then Wright rudely replies,
We don't ask what you're running from, so don't ask us.
To which Clem sympathetically shrugs.
Finally a real answer.
Now let me explain this. I don't know if this quote was like, oh, finally they're giving us some kind of info, since they were so silent and ignorant until that point, or if Clem actually said that in meaning of that being a good answer because she's supposedly also running from her past. The whole thing is pretty ambiguous and in either scenario is just so very dumb. Like, what the hell? With all the suspicious attitude, you're sharing the same roof with them and you're gonna be satisfied with this number of info? Wow. Absolutely ridiculous. Later that night, they're reading a book together, and for some reason, Clem has a poor reading. What the hell? I mean, I expect Clem not to be a reading master in the middle of the apocalypse, but as it looked like in here, I could honestly say that even AJ reads better than her in the final season.
The hunting party come back. She saved my life. I F-worded up and looked like a fool.
On the next day, Clem and Rika go hunting, and what is this Clem's holding? You're telling me they're hunting with this? Guess Tilly never saw a hunting rifle before. Also, during work, we discovered that Rika owns 40 pairs of glasses. Oh, sorry, 36. I mean, it's not impossible, but I'm totally impressed that she gathered this many pairs in the middle of the apocalypse that matched her exact eyesight issues. Yeah, it's just that idiotic and random. Later that night, Amos gets a fever and stays in bed for the next day while Clem and Rika are tasked to get this pretty heavy generator for them. Clem says this.
Left is growing on me.
I mean, I get she volunteered to help and is taking care of Amos, but that sure seemed sudden as hell, especially in the situation they are. So Clem and Rika get on a pretty childish argument and the bridge they were supposed to cross is broken, so they decide to get the generator across with some ropes. But then Rika sleeps and Clem grabs her by the ankle. Rika says it's not worth it, so she kicks Clem on the nose. I never imagined I'd say this about Clem, but she probably deserved that. And then thinking the worst, she jumps off the cliff. Wow, such confidence in yourself that you won't die when you hit the bottom. Ooh, turns out it was a hole full of walkers and the two of them, yes, Rika survived, fight together to take them down. Oh, also, Clem's prosthetic broke too. Then, under the hole, Rika starts talking about her brother, which I'll touch more later in the video, and she offers Clem a cigarette, to which she denies. This panel confused me as hell the first time I read it. Like, seriously, can you see Rika offering a cigarette to her? This art, mixed in with this half-assed dialogue. Wow. Just as they've decided to try climbing it back, Clem reveals she named her prosthetic Kenny. Ooh, instant Kenny love time? No. I heard some people being displeased with Clem referring to him as just a guy she knew, but honestly, you're telling this to a person who has no idea who Kenny was, so no props there for me. Now, even if it is always nice to see Kenny being mentioned, I feel this was a cheap, out-of-place fan service. I mean, since Tilly's dialogue in this already makes no sense, I guess this here can be acceptable to say the least. Rika makes it back up and asks Clem to wait until she gets back with something to help her climb as well. While she waits, she reminisces on memories of her leg being chopped off. We even see AJ hitting her with the axe. Okay, cool. But while she does this, she starts wandering in the cave for some reason. What the hell? You were supposed to wait for Rika. Get your stupid ass back there. She faces a few walkers and is about to get killed, but then a mysterious person comes to save her. He even carries her to a safe place. Clem looks like a kid on this panel. It's hilariously bad. They're just about to make to safety when her rescuer gets bitten on his face. Yeah, tragic. They finish dealing with the walkers and Clem asks who he is, to which he answers, Tim.
Who?
They go eat and drink by Tim's place, and it turns out Tim is the twins' uncle, you know, the one who recruited people for the job and knew how to fly a plane. They continue talking, and when Clem asks questions about what happened last winter or why the twins are so obsessed with that place, he replies, talking about that will only kill me faster. Yeah, you know, cause we're not in a dying necessity for this whole storyline to have any explanation at all, right? So yeah, I guess a lot of people are waiting for me to talk about a bit more about this scene, but I'll get back to this once I talk about the characters more in depth. I can already tell you it has one of the worst character motivations ever in The Walking Dead. Clem gets out of there and says goodbye to the man, making it back to Rika, who's rightfully angry and worried about her. They both make it back to the shed. Turns out Amos is better from the fever and the evil twin recognizes the hatchet Clem was holding, and she tells her what happened. The evil twin gets madly unstable and gets to the well to find Tim, even shoving her sister to the ground. Clem gets a bath.
Keep that hair short.
They get to bed and Rika says she was mad that Clem didn't tell her that she found a man on the chasm with him. I get her being mad about safety reasons, but the way they do this is so affectionate, as if Clem was betraying her confidence somehow. Girl, you met her 2 days ago, fuck off! They talk about it a bit more and decide to go to sleep, while Amos and the good twin are banging on the other side of the shed. What? What? Yeah, when I first read it, I was so confused, since there were no indicators of a relationship building up to that. Guess the twin was under so much stress in the past days that she wanted to blow some steam with the only boy in a 100-mile radius. Before falling asleep, Clem asks Rika if she remembers how telephones worked. Yeah, this question came out of nowhere, and it made me think if she thought of that because she somehow wanted to hear what was happening on the other side of the shed. I mean, she was blushing when she asked that, so I don't know, maybe Clem is into voyeurism after all? I don't want to think about it. And on the next day, they're working. The evil twin is even more bossy than before, and the good twin reveals to Clem that she and Amos are planning an escape. Wow, Amos is a prime stallion, guys. He banged her mind into convincement. So later at the following morning, they all decide to go hunting together. But turns out it was a trap, and the evil twin pushes Amos off the cliff. I totally did not see that one coming, but hey, she for sure found out they were planning to live and kill the boy who banged her sister. Right has the complex of a possessive alpha male, I guess. Once Amos falls, Clem gets once again on dream therapy session by the train with Lee, and then asks to him,
Will the pain ever stop?
Dude, what? You came to this desolated place with these stupid people while you had a stable and safe home back at the school. Not a perfect place, okay, but I can for sure tell you that your chances of suffering of loss like this would have been way reduced if you sat your ass and stay there. And the other thing, this page just made shooting Lee canon. Basically, screw you if you left Lee in your playthrough. Even more so, you put Erickson out of the line for the new storyline not to conflict with players' choices with Violet, Lewis, and Tan, but you arbitrarily made the choice with Lee, the most memorable moment in the series, a one-pick scenario? Hello? Doesn't this woman have editors? Moving on, Clem and Rika escape, because Georgia, the evil twin, has a gun, and they leave Olivia to be captured by her. They mourn Amos's death, plan a way to rescue Olivia from Georgia, and leave that godforsaken place once and for all. About time. Also, they talk a little more about Clem's motivations, which exactly, as I said, I'll do later on the video. Anyway, they set out to execute the plan. The both twins are at the cabin, Olivia tied up and Georgia on watch for movement. The girls use a walker to distract Georgia out of the house and grab her by surprise. Not gonna lie, Clem looks pretty badass when she's about to axe Georgia here. Unfortunately, Clem goes only for her shoulder and doesn't kill her in time. Rika gets in to reunite Olivia, but then Georgia starts shooting at her direction. Just a quick complaint, this panel, man, look at her arm. That is no way to hold a gun. And also, look at her hand. Where is her thumb? Clearly, Tilly doesn't know that much about guns, their designs, nor how to properly draw people firing them. Anyway, the shooting causes another avalanche and they barely make it to the cabin in time. Georgia and the walker used as distraction are half buried in the snow while Clem, Rika, and Olivia are alright. The walker slowly closes in on Georgia while she lashes out her mediocre final villain speech.
You never loved anyone, Clementine, I can see it. You've no idea how far I'll go, what I'll do.
That quickly turns into a plea for mercy.
Olivia, please, everything I've done, it's all for us. For you.
The walker bites her shoulder and then Clem kills the walker only to leave her to turn into one.
Burn in hell, you piece of shit.
Okay, from here on out, basically what happens is what I call the rushed, nonsensical finale. If this whole thing wasn't nonsensical to begin with.
Gonna cry?
So Clem, Rika, and Olivia get away from the place and they perform a quick surgery on Rika to take out the bullet from there.
Where did you learn to do this? Been shot twice, had to learn.
Huh, okay. Guess she's such a badass surgeoness that she can do it with a freaking fork. Clem gets out of the place they're staying to check on the environment, only to find a cat. Okay, a cat. Now in the subject, I could certainly observe a pattern from this cat appearing in here and a certain supernatural cat that appeared in the previous work. Are you listening? The one I mentioned earlier in part 2. So basically the symbolism Tilly applies is this. Cats are comforting and they have the transcendental aura to give humans the spark to change or to become stronger and wiser in hindsight, level one person up to face the harsh reality of life. This is a concept that is decently worked out in Are You Listening, as the cat is pivotal for the plot of the novel. But in here? No. It's just a random ass thing Tilly threw at the end. Ooh, Olivia's barely holding it together. Let her have this cat to herself, cause you know, poor little thingy. Also, they call it Dr. Barneswell. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. Whatever. So they walk 2 long weeks until they get to the settlement Olivia's mom is, because they could use the medicine to Rika and also because of the plane. You see, this whole thing went to shit and they're still insisting in getting this plane. They make it there and then Olivia shows them a secret passage so they can sneak in the place. Wait, her mom is here but she needs to sneak in the place? What? They were in this place before the walkers came in? What? What? Is her mother dead? She became a walker? Wait, aren't you gonna explain things to us? Oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, not that I wanted to know it anyway. Finally. The book ends with the 3 of them fleeing from the settlement, with the plane, let me remind you, flying away in the horizon. An absolute great example. Okay, I'm calm. So I wanted to talk more deeply about the characters in this part of the video here, but I figured I had to talk a little about the world building and the plot to fully understand why a couple of characters are just abysmally crafted in a ridiculous level. And those are, of course, the twins, Georgia and Olivia. So from what we've gathered, Georgia and Olivia alongside their uncle tried building this place up in the mountains because they had good memories about it. Cool. They then tried building it a winter prior to the event of the novel, but then people turned against each other, died of diseases, starvation, whatever, which made the uncle give up. All of that while the mother was sick back at this other community. Then they got out of this community to try building the place again, but now on their own. Okay, why did they leave the community again? Were they bad people? How come they were a settlement before the walkers even came up, like Olivia mentioned? What's this disease their mother had, and why did they leave her? Did she die close to when they entered the settlement? Or were these people keeping her as a walker for some reason in the room? And most important of all, how come Georgia and Olivia were expecting people to come aid them on building of the community when the recruitment happened a winter prior to the events of the novel? I mean, summing it up, what happened to these girls for them to want to run away from where her mother is at and want to build this secluded safe haven? Here comes the thing. Tilly doesn't bother to explain none of these questions. Honestly, questions that are basic when you're crafting a work of storytelling that aren't that hard to come up with when you're writing. I'm not a fan of too much exposition, but most of these questions, issues that are simple, could have been answered with simple exposition, something of a sentence or two. But apparently Tilly wasn't capable of doing even that. By this point, I'm desperate for motivations via exposition. That's just how low we're stooping, guys. Tim. About Tim, he is actually the best character of this book. Shows himself as a wise man and a fighter when he's facing death. But as a character that plays an apparent important role for the twins' motivation, he's also extremely underdeveloped. I get that for the little time he appears, we're not supposed to get the whole information of what's going on through him, but we need to get it somehow. And when Clem asks directly to him, what was all the deal with the twins, he answers, "That would only kill me faster." Yeah, a cheap dialogue tactic to change the subject of the conversation. One thing he does pretty good, on the other hand, is to point out just how stupid Clem sounds when she's talking to him about her motivations to leave the school. Unfortunately, there isn't that much to talk about him overall. However, he immediately died to protect Clementine, so instant chat. Amos. Okay, so now it's a character we have a little more of substance to work with. Famous Amos was the first new character to be announced for the novel. So what do we make of him? Well, he's for sure not the worst part of this novel, however he's far from being a good part of it. He's kind and helpful, however he's extremely annoying and naive to a point it becomes extremely unrealistic in my opinion. I get that Amish people should sound funny to an overall globalized society due to their traditional and religious customs. That's not my point. The thing that gets me the most about him is just how unaware of the outer world he is. I mean, I get it. Amish people live excluded from everything else, but in the apocalypse, I think things would have changed on how secluded they feel from the world, right? They would have likely have dealt with big hordes of walkers, hence the big wall, beside the fact that for sure other communities would try making contact with their village, both for violent and alliances. So the people in the village, even the younger ones, should have probably grown up with a bigger knowledge of how different the world was in the apocalypse. So for Amos and the supposed Amish council trusting in a deal from a guy that flew a plane over their village a year ago is extremely contrived, especially without safety assurances that are natural in these Walker times. For sure, the Amish could have possibly survived the apocalypse and stay at the same place from the start, still leaving their own traditions, but they for sure would have had to adapt a minimum amount to have maintained themselves in the apocalypse. No place is fully unharmed in the universe of The Walking Dead, and for me, Tilly failed at explaining how the Amish made it this long as a community in the apocalypse. The amount that was explored, for example, don't explain why Amos is so naive. He doesn't need to be as hardened as Clem, but for sure a few things like realizing fishy situations such as the deal to build a community, the difference of thriving and survival, and the way he asked Rika about her family being dead. Overall, a character that lacked a lot and unfortunately won't be around anymore to tell more tales to us. Rika. Oh, this is gonna be bad. While this novel doesn't have that much characters to begin with, and none of them practically are nice to follow around, and Rika, man, she's annoying to a point she shades Amos annoyingness. Yeah, that bad. I've already made a lot of complaints about her throughout the whole video, evidencing how cringy her dialogue and romantic approaches towards Clementine can be. Ooh, I don't need to be saved. Ooh, I don't need a girlfriend to gossip. Ooh, you didn't even tell me you found this man. Ooh, you hurt my emotions so much, Clem. So, guess I'm gonna try talking about the good stuff too. I guess her backstory with her brother where he abused her due to her eyesight issues and he broke her glasses on purpose only for her not to leave him is fine and feels like a genuine thing that could happen on The Walking Dead. However, one thing I missed a lot was a more detailed reason for her to have ended up wanting to work for the twins. Wanting to learn how to build houses is just not enough. However, one big issue that people have with this character are the self-insert claims, pointing out that Rika looked exactly like Tilly Walden. At first I was pretty adverse to these claims. However, as things kept sounding worse and worse by the day with the interviews, I was fearing that was going to be the case. And how did it all went? In my opinion, I honestly don't think Rika is a self-insert for Tilly Walden. At least to me, her characterization is enoughly dissonant to Tilly's background and track record. For sure, she's the type of author who writes many things inspired in her own life, and you can find pieces of herself in every character here and there. But a self-insert claim only so Clementine can fall in love for her on a twisted fanfiction-esque story? I mean, it was a fear I had at some point, not gonna lie, but for me at least, turned out to be false. For the better, no doubt. So yeah, people. Moment of truth. Close up the characters we're gonna talk about her, our loving sweet pea, and the one that gives name to this novel. As you may gather by this point on what I said during the whole video, this characterization of Clem was enoughly bad to begin with since the CL comic. But now I'll dive deeper in those sections I skipped in the previous part about her motivations, and those are the scene in the cave with Tim and the calm before the storm with Rika, closer to the end of the novel. First of all, the cave. This is the first time Clem actually says out loud why she left the school to set on a journey by herself. I guess her being tormented with the fact that she had her leg chopped off and have to deal with the residual limb constantly aching and hurting is an okay feeling for her to have. However, by the moment Tim advises her to get out of that mountain and go be with people, Clem starts edging up worse than her A&F version.
Groups, camps, towns, hell, even cities. You find people. You survive together as long as you can, but you're really just waiting, killing time until it falls apart. And falling apart isn't always something that happens. It's a feeling that makes you want to run. I came north to be alone, to live like you are. The only thing to want anymore is not to get bit. You make it sound like it's all so exciting. No, it's boring. When I'm not fighting something, I'm so bored.
We have just lost cabin pressure.
What did you just say? Okay, now let's go to the scene she talks more to Rika about it.
I'm not going to die. That's the problem. I keep making it, even after everyone doesn't. Lee, my mom, my dad, and there's so many. It's hard to keep track. And now, Amos. I don't know. Something in me changed after I got bit. I ignored it for a while, but it kept growing. The idea that I was going to live, and not just day by day like I had been. I could live for months, years, that I might be an adult someday, like my mom was. I don't know why, but it scared me so much that it felt like I couldn't breathe. I spent so many years trying to find somewhere safe. And I did. This old school. There were good people there. People I love. But after I lost my leg, everything felt different. No one said it, but I could feel it. They thought I was a liability. But I think the real issue was that I couldn't talk to any of them about it. They were all around my age, and I just wanted to talk to Lee about it. Someone older, and I don't know. After leaving the school, I was alone, like I was when he first found me. And I realized I was waiting for him, for Lee to come find me. And I was so pissed at him for not trying harder. Which doesn't make any sense. He's dead. When I was on my own, it was nice for a while. I was so focused. My mind got so quiet. It didn't last. No. I got so sad I would just cry for days and then I'd get scared. About what my future would be like. That maybe this sadness would never go away.
What is there even to say about this big pile of shit-ass garbage? I'm not holding any punches here, guys. This is outrageous. I get it, okay? Tilly likes to write teenage drama, and that every now and then implies that the characters don't have that much maturity. Maturity to endure conversations. Maturity to be assertive and hardworking, to get to know your own emotions. The fright and anxiety to become an adult. But why? Why regress Clementine's character to her New Frontier version? Why? The only thing that matters is not to get bit? Killing time until it all falls apart? I keep making it? These are things that edgy A&F Clem or even Season 2 Jane would say. I'm not a fan of her characterization in Season 3, but at least it made a bit more sense as to how she was feeling after she just went through the Season 2 endings, regardless of which one, and later on the flashbacks basically losing AJ to the group. But here? It continues to not make any sense when you take the final season into account. Another thing, I get that we as human beings are complex, and sometimes as uplifting as things may seem, not always you're truly happy. But honestly, bored is just a terrible way of phrasing it, Jesus. It makes Clem sound like she's an ungrateful little brat, and that's never that of a welcome thought for fans. And now onto the Rika conversation. She starts saying about being a liability to the people of the school. I guess that being handicapped in the apocalypse can become a liability. For instance, we saw the way Crawford treated liabilities in Season 1, Episode 4, or even how Reggie was always using his arms as an excuse in Season 2, Episode 3, later dying by Carver. Of course, the people of the school wouldn't be that much of extremists, but I can actually see them being displeased with day-to-day work with Clem being handicapped now. But seriously? After everything they went through with her in the final season, without her efforts and plan, they would probably all be dead or serving as slaves for the Delta's war. So perhaps a bit of gratitude and patience with the person who saved you wouldn't be that much to ask. And more. Are you seriously gonna make us swallow this half-assed excuse without showing any indicators for it in the previous chapters? Not even in CL you could see indicators for it. AJ is just rightfully revolted with the fact Clem is leaving him. And the thing that comes to make this even worse, the time period of a few weeks that was already a problem I said at the start of the video. In a few weeks, Clem felt people were thinking she was a liability and decided to leave, which again, she said she couldn't talk to anyone at the school about it. And let me put emphasis on this, because she conveniently wanted an adult to talk about it since at the school there are only kids. All of that, and she was waiting for the miraculous Lee to come down from heavens and save her from her suffering, and even feeling angry he didn't appear. Even she admits that this makes no sense. You see, Tilly thought that these incoherencies being applied to Clem would make her a more complex and human-traded character, but no. The shot went completely backwards and exploded in our faces. This is just dumb. Simple as that. And maybe the worst part of all, she mentions Lee and many other people that died. Okay, but she doesn't mention the people from the school that are alive and doesn't even mention AJ at all. In all of her cringeworthy ranting on her past, she didn't mention AJ once. She mentioned the people from the school, sure, but she didn't mention AJ on specific. And we all know AJ isn't simply a person from the school. It's a big sister slash mother-son thing they had going on for years on the last 2 games. And she doesn't even mention him when struggling with her emotions in this book. As clear as water, Tilly does not understand the weight AJ should have when putting Clem to balance such choices in her life. I honestly feel like Clem could actually not be completely happy at the school. With the due time period passing, let me remind you, a few weeks my ass. And she could have her ups and downs from time to time when dealing with her new life at the school. But how about you show us how this goes in a natural storytelling progression and not just ramp it in our faces and give us a half-ass excuse from the middle to the end of the whole thing. So to end this whole thing already, this book is a joke that stained Telltale's legacy, stained the Walking Dead franchise, completely destroyed Skybound's reputation, and even compromised Tilly's own career as a growing prominent cartoonist. She may have gotten a few bucks from it, but at what cost, I might ask? As it was to be expected, everything is a contrivancy in this story. Bad out scenarios and world building, terrible characterizations, stupid dialogues, weird spatial and timestamps from scene to scene and panel to panel, ridiculously inconsistent and bland black and white art style that does not match Tilly's simpler art style. All of that for a story that doesn't even bother to explain basic things about itself and has zero to no conclusion, both plot and character-wise, only pushing things to a sequel book in the trilogy that will release on October 2023. Do you know how I discovered this out? Because book 2 was announced over a month before the release of book 1, and as soon as it did release, they revealed the date and the synopsis. And just pointing out something, do you people know when Tilly finished producing book 1? Remember that abysmal trailer that dropped in January of 2022 with that cheap commercial background music? Yeah, that's when book 1 was finished, and they made us wait a whole new semester more, because I guess they have a new planned releasing schedule for books 2 and 3, since Tilly is rushing heavens and hell with this whole thing. And she even said that at the expo in May of 2022. She rushed through the games to present a pitching for Skybound, and she's rushing to make this whole thing come to life. All of these terrible creative decisions, adding to the fact that she's rushing the hell with this. Guys, there's no escaping this. And I haven't even talked about the synopsis for book 2.
Seems like we're pretty fucked. No shit, we're fucked. That's all you gotta say.
Once she loved? New life? Not at all forced when you actually saw what happened in book 1, right? Heart-wrenching adventures about finding family, embracing love, and growing up in the darkest of times. You know, cause you didn't get any of that in the games to begin with, am I right?
That shit can't stand.
And now with all of this said, I can for sure, once and for all, tell you that this is not Clementine. This is her evil twin Tangerine, and she'll from now on be exclusively called by this name on this channel. I have never seen a bigger character assassination than this in my entire life, and I've seen some bad ones in Disney's take on Star Wars. And not pulling any words more here, Tangerine is a straight up child abandoner that left her kid to be with other random people after a few weeks of moping around like a bitch, and doesn't even think about her own son figure when struggling in the wilderness of the apocalypse. Tilly don't understand Clementine. Tilly does not understand The Walking Dead. Skybound destroyed this series and character, and I'm gonna tell you all of this. They'll try to ignore us, the fans, the real fans, not these stupid paid reviewers, as much as they can, but they'll fail miserably, and when they quit ignoring us, we will be seen as the big villains of the whole thing. So I wanted to talk a bit more about this topic of corporate decisions and stuff in this video, settling exactly whose fault is it, but this is already big enough of a video, so I'll deal with it in the next opportunity, okay? So stay tuned for that. I was in a desperate need to make this video already because otherwise I think my head would just blow up with rage. And also, finally, I just gotta apologize so much on the delay of this review. I started working this on May of this year, and when the book released, I was so caught up in many things in life. You know, I started living by myself, and that's actually way harder than people think at first. Thank you a lot if you made it to the end. Wow, you're a survivor. Remember, please evaluate the video, subscribe to the channel for more, and comment down below your opinions. I love to see what you guys have to talk about my videos. Also, the gag on the start of the video was made with the participations of my friends Nekomi and Thane. I'll link their channels in the description so you can check them out. So with that said, I say my farewell, despite this being horribly made. Peace to everyone, and see you when I see you. Bye bye.